Oh, hi, Mark. Yes. Your boy is back again. That was the cringiest thing of all time. But it was meant to be, so that makes it not cringy. That's not how that works. I think you already knew that, and I already knew that. All right, moving on. You like my shirt? I'll bet you don't. It's super faded, but it's a Jason Takes Manhattan shirt. Yeah, I like that movie so much. I have it in t-shirt form. Or rather, I have a t-shirt in Jason Takes Manhattan form. No idea what I'm saying anymore. Those are so good. Those Jarritos, Mandarin flavored Jarritos. I'm not usually an orange soda guy, but Mandarin flavored Jarritos is where it's at. It's a spot every time. Anyway, a minute into the video and I'm just now getting to the video. That's cool. Oh well, you guys can handle it. So today I'm here to talk about another top 10 list. This will be the second top 10 list that I've done, and today it's going to be the top 10 dark and nihilistic horror movies. Basically, these are just going to be movies that I either love them, or there's at least one movie in here I don't love that's just in there because it's dark and nihilistic. But yeah, each of these movies is going to be a film that makes you realize how meaningless life truly is in some way, shape, or form. And there's a few movies that got left out, but I do have a couple of honorable mentions. So without further ado, let's get into the honorable mentions. The Dark and the Wicked. I feel like I've only seen this movie once and I don't remember it well enough to actually put it in the list. But yeah. I don't want to spoil it, which is why I'm not gonna talk too much about it, but The Dark and the Wicked, take my word for it. This is some dark shit. Very fitting title, as I said in my last video. Pretty sure it was my last top 10 video, even. Videoception. And then the next film... Lucio, stop licking, please. My dog has an obsession with licking air and licking his paw. Just stop. Pretty please. Stupid. Anyway. The next honorable mention is Martyrs. This is one of the most disturbing movies I've ever seen. Plain and simple. This is a troubling movie. It really is just a movie. It's not one that you just want to watch over and over. I have seen a good majority of this movie, like a weird amount of times. But that's just because it's so great. Like, this movie is a masterpiece. And now this isn't necessarily how I interpret the ending, but the reason it's on this list in the first place is because of how the ending can be interpreted. Lucio, stop. And that is basically, so if you haven't seen Martyrs, huge spoiler alert, alright, for the end of the film. Basically, this movie could be interpreted as when the head chick, I don't remember her name, but when she takes her eyebrows off, or her eyelashes off and everything, and like wipes down her makeup. My personal thought about that ending is that she is ascending into the next life. Which is how you could take the ending. Or you could take the ending the way why it's in this video, the super nihilistic and dark way, and say it was defeat, essentially. Like, it was just defeat. And she realized through her victim telling her that there is nothing beyond this life. And essentially that what they're doing is meaningless. And what these lives that everyone is living is completely meaningless. So that's why Martyrs got an honorable mention. Those were the only 2 honorable mentions that I had. And now we're going to get into the actual top 10 list. Number 10 is Night of the Living Dead. You may not agree with this. You may not think this movie is particularly dark or nihilistic. But if you think about it, yeah, this movie is both of those things. Of course it's dark, like it's a zombie movie, but this movie is about corpses who come back from the dead, but ultimately they aren't human anymore. They are just these reanimated, shambling corpses that eat people for no real reason other than, I don't know, guess the people looked scrumptious. And everyone dies. Of course, spoilers for Night of the Living Dead. If you haven't seen it. Who am I kidding? Who hasn't seen Night of the Living Dead? Seriously, if you haven't seen Night of the Living Dead, you need to get your priorities in check, okay? I'm a guy who doesn't have his priorities in check. But if you haven't seen Night of the Living Dead, shame on you. Get your priorities in check. But just genuinely, a man survives just to be shot in the head. A mother and a father carry their daughter to this house, and they care for her in the basement of this house just for the father to die and for the mother to be stabbed to death and partially devoured by her reanimated daughter, who is just a corpse. If that's not some of the most nihilistic shit I've ever said, like that's ever come out of my mouth, I don't know what it is. What is? Yeah, this movie's very nihilistic when you actually think about it for more than 2 seconds. This one's pretty obvious, I think. By the way, guys, understand, I didn't put much thought into the rankings in this video because it's just a thing where it's like I really don't want to sit there and break my brain thinking what movie do I like more, and then put that on a scale with what movie is more nihilistic than the other. Like, it's that, I don't know, it's tiresome. It really is. But anyway, next up at number 9 we have the Poughkeepsie Tapes. This movie, in my opinion, is very disturbing. It's kind of funny. I hear a lot about how the acting in this movie sucks, and I don't get it. The acting in this movie sucks? It does? I don't know. Like, I guess it's coming from a perspective of someone who watches a lot of bad movies. And so I get so accustomed to these garbage tier movies. Something like the Poughkeepsie Tapes just doesn't seem that bad to me. Like, it might seem terrible to you guys, but I don't know. This movie really isn't that bad, in my opinion. I know there's a lot of people who really hate the Poughkeepsie Tapes. I am not one of those people. However, I do think it is incredibly disturbing and so messed up and mean and nihilistic. This movie shows us this really, really sadistic, evil scumbag of a human. And what he does to his victims, and what he does to, most notably, I think her name's Cheryl Dempsey in the movie. Her character's name, anyway. And it is troubling. It's so sad, too. This movie is dark, is just that's the perfect all-encompassing word for this movie. It is just about an hour and a half of sheer darkness. And yeah, I mean, how the movie kind of ends is just terrible. I mean, this girl endures all of this just to kill herself. Yep. That's, again, super nihilistic, but I think I've made my point with that one. Yeah. My cat is at my feet. And if you know anything about this cat, she will take any opportunity to jump into my lap. And she's currently rubbing her scent on a piece of furniture I have in my room. Hey, she's so cute. Anyway, I'm sorry, I keep pausing and anyway, number 8. I Saw the Devil. First of all, let's get this clear right off the top, right from the jump. This movie is a masterpiece. Don't you let anyone tell you this movie isn't a masterpiece. Because it is. This is one of my favorite non-Italian foreign films. And I kind of put Italian films in a different sort of vein, because I've seen so many of them, and it's, but this is one of my favorite non-Italian foreign films, and it is dark. And guess what? Nihilistic. Those two words are going to be said a lot in this video, by the way. If you haven't caught on to that, hold on, man. This cat, there we go. She started kneading on my leg, and she got her friggin' claw stuck in my pants. Anyway, but I Saw the Devil, man. It is vicious and mean and nasty, and I mean, this guy, he loses his girlfriend, his pregnant girlfriend, I might add, to the most evil serial killer, one of the most evil serial killers in movie history, probably. And then he tracks down said serial killer and seeks vengeance for his lost loved one. And he lets him go a bunch, and people get hurt. And the guy makes a monster out of himself. And ultimately, he ends up killing the serial killer. And in the very end of the movie, you just see him crying, just bawling his eyes out. And you could interpret this in a couple of different ways. One, it was his grief. Like, he had been holding in all this grief since he learned of the death of his girlfriend or his wife. And he's finally letting it all out now that he feels that he has avenged her. Or you could interpret that as him coming to terms with the fact that he has nothing left now. Because first, or maybe some kind of, mixture of the two. Because first, he loses his significant other. His ex-father-in-law is severely injured. And now he has killed the driving force behind his heart beating. Like, the sole reason that this guy has gone on living. He has just murdered him. And now, basically, he's sort of realizing that his life has no meaning anymore. He has nothing left. So that's kind of, just a wee bit dark, I might say. Oh, God, it's so good. So good. Alright. Number 7. The Last House on the Left. I picked this over the I Spit on Your Grave movies. And the reason being is because I feel like the I Spit on Your Grave movies actually empower the revenge seeker. They portray this revenge as something that's empowering and a good thing. Whereas The Last House on the Left, the original 1972 one, not the 2009 one, portrays it all as bad. It's all bad. There's nothing good. Like, the horrible thing happens to them. They are victimized in an awful, terrible way. And then, one of them tries to escape, but ends up getting shot, finding her way back to the house, but she's dead. She's dead by the time her parents find her. Or maybe she wasn't dead by the time her parents found her. Maybe it was, she was like almost dead. Maybe she had died on the table when they're trying to heal her. But then the parents, of course, they start deducing what's gone on, and they understand that these people are the ones that have victimized their daughter. And so the parents go after Krug and the rest of them. And ultimately, they get their revenge. Not only do they get their revenge, something also that adds a whole layer of darkness to this movie was Krug and his son. And when his son, I think his son, like, points a gun at Krug, and Krug just starts saying, blow your brains out, blow your brains out. And the son turns the gun on himself and shoots himself right there. That is one of the darkest scenes ever. But then on top of that, I mean, the parents get their revenge in this movie, and it's not shown as a good thing. Like, yeah, the victimization of these two young girls is shown as the atrocity and evil thing that it is. But then they also show the revenge in almost the same light. A kind of made monsters of themselves taking this revenge, and once they have it, once they have their revenge, they're just left feeling empty. Because if I recall correctly, the final shot of this film is the dad sitting there with a chainsaw, and he's just sitting in the living room, and he and his wife are just sitting there, zoned out. Terribly dark film, but amazing all the same. That's why that is my favorite movie of the rape revenge subgenre. I love the darkness of it. I think the whole thing is just absolutely amazing, just how they portray everything as being so tragic. Lucy, no, not right now. No. Please walk away. And then we have the other cat, who she's not usually a friendly one. Come on, kitty. Oh my god, that's why I didn't want her to jump on me. Anyway, this is Lucy. She's pretty precious, not gonna lie. She's my baby. However, she's not the most friendly cat, and she doesn't come say hello very often, and when she does, it's usually when I'm sitting on the foot of my bed like this, and she just jumps up on one of my knees, and is like walking back and forth between my knees. I swear she does it just so she can fall and dig her claws into my leg. But anyway, moving on. What are we on? Number 6. All Hallows Eve. This is an anthology film. And I think it's really easy to see why this movie makes the list. Children die in this movie. They don't just die, but their corpses are then mocked. And by corpses, I mean severed heads. They are laughed at. Women are drugged and raped by Satan. Literally by the devil. A woman is made into a fuck nugget in this movie. Oh my god, that is so evil. And that is probably the most evil part in this movie, where he butchers this woman, and he keeps her alive, and he's like carved obscenities into her. That is Art the Clown in this movie is evil, even more evil than he is in Terrifier. He is a terrible human being, or entity, whatever he is. He is a terrible one. But, yeah, this movie's super dark. Has a dark ending. At the end of the day, no one grew in any way. We were just there in All Hallows Eve to be scared and to be grossed out and to witness a storyline that's super nihilistic and again makes you think life is meaningless. Of course, not literally. I feel like you'd have to be fairly mentally unstable to like watch a movie and genuinely afterwards be like, well, life is meaningless now. Like, I don't know. It seems ridiculous. So understand when I say that, of course I'm joking, but Cabin Fever. So this is on the lighter side of things, honestly. And by lighter, I mean it is comedic. It's super darkly comedic, but it is comedic, and I love this movie. You know, I enjoy the sense of humor in this movie. I like Eli Roth's sense of humor. For whatever reason, I just like it. I like douchebag characters being douchebags. But being funny douchebags, I guess? Like, I really like Bert in this movie. Like, boy, would you mind telling me why you would steal a Snickers bar? He's like, for the nougat? Or, that's one of my favorite lines of the movie too. He's got a rifle and he's walking out into the woods with it. And they're like, Bert, what are you gonna do with that? And he's like, I'm gonna shoot some squirrels. And they're like, why would you shoot squirrels? And he takes a drink of his beer and he thinks about it for a second. And he's like, 'cause they're gay. And the chick's like, Bert, don't be a fucking retard. Bert's like, I'm kidding, I don't care whether they're gay or straight, I'll shoot them either way. Like, there's something about that I find hilarious. And I love how politically incorrect this movie is. That is one of the huge drawbacks of the 2016 remake. It is so PC that it's gross. I mean, it literally takes Cabin Fever and drains every bit of life and vitality it has out of it. Makes a shot-for-shot remake, except it has none of the political incorrectness, and it's become this weird, pansified version of Cabin Fever. I don't know. I hate that remake. But anyway, and this movie is dark and nihilistic because ultimately everyone here ends up getting this virus. There's one person who survives. He comes back to the cabin and he is promptly gunned down by government officials. And then you think, well, okay. I mean, they did that to stop the virus, right? So they stopped the virus. They did what they were planning to do. So I guess that's a plus. So this town's not gonna be infected with this virus. Well, that's where you're wrong. Because we find out that this virus is being transmitted through drinking the water and through direct contact with the water, not through people. And there is a point in this movie where we find the dead body, like a dead body in the water that had this virus. It was the body of the man they caught on... No. I want to say it was, but I also don't think it was. I don't know. It was... Doesn't matter. It was a body of a man who had the virus. And he was in this body of water, and this body of water led right to the town's reservoir. And in the end of the film, we see these two little kids getting some water out of the pond to make lemonade with. And so that entire town will become infected now. So, yeah. Kinda dark. Kinda dark there. No one accomplished anything. It all just kind of went to crap. Alright, we are on number 4. Number 4 is The Strangers. For a lot of people, I think this is like the creme de la creme nihilistic dark movie. And I can see why. It is possibly I don't know, it is possibly the most nihilistic movie. It's not necessarily my favorite one of the bunch, but it's, don't get me wrong, I do love this, and I do prefer it to a lot of these movies. But it's just not my favorite of the bunch. But I will say it's probably the most nihilistic, the most meaningless. It's the most meaningless, and just, there's nothing to this movie, really. There's no underlining message. It's not really like that. It's not a complex story or anything where you can watch it to be like, oh, I'm watching this because it has an interesting story. It's like you're watching this movie because you want to be scared. And that's fine, don't get me wrong, I'm not judging you for that. Like, I own this movie, I love this movie, but it is very much so a thing where it's like, this movie is, at the end of the day, it's meaningless. It doesn't have to have a meaning, but it is. It's meaningless, and to the characters that are in it, it's pointless. I mean, we have the killers, we have the characters. The characters end up dead. I think Liv Tyler ends up maybe not dead, but severely injured. And, of course, she'll never be the same again. Her character won't. She will never be the same again. She will always be haunted by this memory. And the best reason that one of the killers could come up with when asked, why are you doing this, was because you were home. Which is a chilling line. And I love it. This movie is really amazing, and it is really, in my opinion, it is very scary. And it is very dark and nihilistic. Alright, so now we're at number 3. Again, guys, understand these movies weren't ranked in any particular way. So get that I'm not saying this movie's more dark and nihilistic than the other movies. This is just where it kind of fell. City of the Living Dead. Yeah, honestly, I could probably put the New York Ripper on there too. But that's not what we're talking about right now. Talking about City of the Living Dead. And yeah, this movie's dark. I mean, as much as I love this movie, and as much as I think it's such a cheesy good time, it is an ultra dark movie. Like, essentially, a priest hangs himself. We don't ever know why the priest hangs himself. He just kind of does. Just kind of hangs himself. He's just hanging around. No particular reason. Which basically brings on the end of the world. Like, it opens up a gate to hell, essentially. And then they try to stop it. And the end of the movie comes about. And they think they stopped it. They think they stopped, well, I think it was called All Saints Day. They think they stopped All Saints Day. But it turns out that they didn't stop it. Because in the end of the movie, the very end, the kid is running towards our female lead, yelling her name. And we just, as he's running towards her, we just hear her screaming bloody murder. And the screen cracks. Like, the image on the screen, like, cracks, and we hear, like, a glass shattering sound, or, like, an explosion sound. Something of that nature. So I would assume that that's maybe part of her premonition, sort of? Since she was a psychic, right? Like, I don't remember if that was her or the other character. Because one of the characters died. But anyway, but more or less, I think that signified, like, reality shattering, the world ending, and realistically, the movie ends with heavy implications that it didn't work. And now we're all just boned. So, City of the Living Dead, actually a very dark, nihilistic sort of movie. Also a weirdly super fun movie that I love to watch over and over again. And these last two, I've talked about ad nauseum, talked about to death already. The Blackcoat's Daughter. This is an amazing movie, and I'll tell you why I think it's not that this movie really needs to be justified as far as why is this nihilistic, but this girl's parents die, and she's basically left alone. She then summons Satan or some sort of demon, who then possesses her. And basically she likes it. Like, she wants to be possessed. Because she is, from my understanding, it's because she feels alone. She feels alone in the world. She feels like everyone has abandoned her. And the only thing she can get to stay around is this demon, who a priest then exorcises out of her. Years later, she breaks out of a mental institution. She goes back. She murders a couple of people. And she tries to summon it again, but she finds that basically, when the priest cast it out, he cast it out for good. And she breaks down crying because she realizes that it can't come back. And that she will be alone forever. This is one of the darkest movies ever. Which is why I love it so much. And number one, this shouldn't really be a surprise to anyone. Terrifier. I don't really need to explain this, do I? Like, this movie has very little plot. It is literally just, it's about him murdering people in evil, vicious, terrible ways. And it's amazing. I don't think a slasher movie really needs that much of a plot. And I think this movie succeeds in being not boring, but also not having much of a plot. Now, I don't necessarily say that as a positive, because it's not as though I hope that slasher movies aren't going to have a plot. It's just that I think they can go without. And this movie very, well, not go without, like they need a plot. It can't just literally be someone walking around killing people. Because if that's the case, then you get the 1989 violent shit movie. And that movie's terrible. And it's so boring. But I don't know. I think this movie succeeds on pretty much in every way. It succeeded at exactly what it was trying to do, which was be like a ruthless slasher movie that takes no prisoners. A no-holds-barred slasher movie. And it did exactly that. And I love it for that. So that is my list Uh, Again, just kind of a random list that I thought of. Like, I I was feeling like watching a really dark and nihilistic movie one night. I was like, man, there aren't enough of these. You know, like I really love in the horror genre when a movie just has the balls to be as dark and nihilistic. I'm sorry to keep reusing the same two words, but there's a reason I named the list that, and that's because those are the words that best exemplify what I'm trying to say, or best represent, rather, what I'm trying to say. And it doesn't seem like there's enough of them to me. I don't know, like, I'm all for silly, fun movies like Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I love that movie, you know, or I'm trying to find another one that's like silly and fun, or like Sharknado, you know, um, or Trick or Treat, the '80s movie with Ozzy Osbourne. I say with Ozzy Osbourne, he's in that movie for like 20 seconds. But anyway, like, I'm not against the fun movies, but I really do love when a movie just has the brass to just be unapologetically dark and just make everything pretty much as evil as humanly possible. I don't know, there's something I appreciate about that kind of movie. Maybe it's just because of the sick type of human I am, but I really like that kind of movie. And so, you know, I decided to make a list about it. If you guys have a list, or if you guys think of a list, put it in the comments. You know, if you have any recommendations of, like, dark horror movies for me to watch, you know, something in the vein of The Black Coat's Daughter, maybe. I love that type of shit, so I will most definitely check that out. If you want to put that in the comments. But yeah, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I tried to make this list a little different as far as subject matter, because you don't see a lot of lists like this, but like I said, it also came pretty naturally, luckily, because I was thinking about this one day. But yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you liked my picks, and if you haven't seen any of those, please do yourself a favor and watch them, except maybe Poughkeepsie Tapes. People seem to not really like that one. So frankly, if you're not like hardcore into the really dark, mean side of horror, I don't really think you need to watch Poughkeepsie Tapes. Honestly, it's probably my least favorite movie of the list, including the honorable mentions. So just probably minus that one. But if you haven't seen any of the other ones, they're all fantastic. But anyway, I'll catch you guys on the next one.